Hi, welcome everybody. I'm here with Lesley Kaplan. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's really a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Barbara. I'm delighted to be here today.
So as I always like to do, I'm going to read your bio so that the viewers, listeners can get to know you a little bit better, and then we're going to get started. Lesley Kaplan is a business strategist and branding coach and organizational consultant and trainer. As the founder of Build Your Brand, Your Biz, and LAK Creations and Consulting, she has advised, trained, and coached hundreds of business owners, realtors, and organizations worldwide to success. She's a published author of 2 books available on Amazon or in Israel via her website. Lesley is also the founder of Israel Networking Hub with events, VIP membership, and a dedicated Facebook group. And she's the founder and host of the Monday Motivation Spotlight podcast. Welcome, Lesley.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So we met, I think, a few years back at some of the networking events, maybe even one of the ones that you organized. But I have to say, I was always impressed with the high energy that you bring to everything that you do. You are very enthusiastic and really it doesn't matter whether a business is big or a business is small, people getting started, you always have something profound to say to people. And that's so important because it's not easy to have a business here in Israel.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I always say that having a business is not for everyone. And, many people think when we talk about being business owners or whether being employees, that one is better than the other. But there's no such thing. It really just depends on your personality. And as we know, there are many challenges of running a business and just being continually self-motivated and reporting to yourself, not having someone to report to. So definitely, that is something. And I love being my own business owner and part of this lovely Israeli women's and men's networking world. And yes, we met you. I think the first time that we met was actually not through one of the events that I ran, but more through some of the other events. And then you've joined many of my events too, which has been awesome. And I've also hosted you as one of my guests on one of my panels. So yeah, it's a collaboration. I love the collaboration out there between all these people in business.
Definitely. Let's take a quick break. I want to remind you that if you're interested in learning more about neuro-emotional coaching or kinesiology, if you would like to have a taste, find out what it could do for you or your business, your family, please look at the show notes. There's a link for a 30-minute free introductory meeting, and we can explore it. You can look at what is holding you back? What are your dreams? What is it that you always wanted to achieve? Don't be shy, sign up. Now, let's get back to the show. So I actually don't know, Lesley, how you got started in being a business owner. So I would love to hear your story. So take it away.
Thank you. Okay, so I've been in business for close on 3 decades now. It's exactly 28 years. Coming up 2027 will be 30 years of being in business. And my business has flown, I guess, likewise, like I've flown and grown in different directions according to my why at the moment. And at the time, it's been, a pretty solid, stable journey. However, what I've done is what I initially started off, I was working more in a product business, which I loved and motivated me for many, many years. I was self-creating. I was creating products for, number one, for the corporate market, for branding, for the corporate market. And also, I was working a lot in retail. And creating my own products, and I loved it. My kids always used to joke with me. They used to see me if we went abroad or going into stores. I would always touch and feel and look at certain things because my mind was always flowing with all these ideas and things that I wanted to create. And I did that for many, many years after starting my business in Israel. For close on 20 years, I was servicing retail outlets, and eventually I decided my passion was not servicing the retail outlets anymore. In addition, I was also doing consulting and I was doing the branding for companies, but I decided that my passion was really in the consulting and the coaching and the facilitation, group facilitation. So I went back, I studied extra, I went to college, I did a master's. I've also got certification as an organizational consultant. And even though I've been doing consulting in South Africa before, number one, it was only English speaking there. So here there was, of course, that challenge of the Hebrew. So I do consult and coach now in English and in Hebrew, which I never would have dreamt of doing that in the early years. But my passion was more that, because in South Africa, I was doing a lot of HR consulting and recruiting and matching people, with their skills to their jobs. And I really missed that personal touch. And even though you have it when you're working with clients in branding and corporate branding and in retail, so I decided to move my business into a different flow and different direction. And I think this is a life lesson as well, is that when we see that we're doing things that are no longer gelling with what we want or what we believe in, to know when to cut things, or whether we can try adapt things into our lives at the time and the way that we are wanting to move. Like the Lesley of 20 years old is not the Lesley of 40 or 50 or 60 years old, like with any of us. So I've been blessed to be able to have kept the same business name and to have moved it in different directions, kept the departments that I wanted to, let go what I didn't want to, and focusing more on what makes me happy, where I believe my strengths are, and where I believe my true value is that others can gain as well.
That's so smart. It's like, I think many people often think in order to be relevant, they need to do everything, because then it's easier to attract clients. And it's actually the opposite. The more focused and the more of a niche that you have identified, the easier it is to market yourself, because then it's like people can easily say, yes, I want this. No, I don't want that. So
exactly.
I also did
that. That's why I expanded and I said build and brand your business, because the build relates to all my activities with coaching, consulting, my networking groups where I'm helping business owners build themselves and their businesses. And the branding is, yes, still keeping with the corporate side and the corporate branding, the promotional products, but also the business strategy and branding your business, which I've created and I've merged the two. So under one umbrella, I managed to incorporate both those things and to let go what I no longer wanted to do.
That's good. What was your favorite product that you ever produced?
My favorite product?
Yeah, do you have one?
Yeah, sure. So for the retail outlets, I produced many times a huge range. Literally, we had dozens of designs, and I've still got those going on the sides, but I do more, the corporate designs now. I brought the whole idea, my company brought in the whole idea of a magnetic bookmark into Israel. That was my company that did it and focused on that. The idea was from Chutz La'aretz. I worked with partners in Chutz La'aretz abroad, but my company brought the idea into Israel and we expanded it. Now, today, many people, we still read books, but there's so many digital things going on. So that was the one. The other one was magnetic puzzles. I love creating the images of magnetic puzzles, where we did for clients and selling them. So those were the retail outlets. On the client and corporate side, I really truthfully enjoy them all, whether it's corporate, whether it's mugs, or whether it's even just a branded pen, or, we have high-tech and low-tech items, many types of bags. So it's not just the same. We have some of the same standard types of bags, literally thousands of items that you can get abroad, but many of them are unique and customized to what I create, my company.
Fantastic.
That's in terms of the product side, yeah. But my passion is on the coaching and the consulting, not the actual products. But I give my 100% to that as well, because that's what I believe you need to do. But I know where my passion is.
That's good to know. So, what was the biggest challenge you had to overcome in the 30 years that you've been in business?
In the 30 years I've been in business. So I would say one of the biggest challenges, and I still find it a challenge, even though my children are older now, is work-life balance. I find that's a challenge that I know that many of my clients have too. So when I was in my 20s and 30s and even 40s, because I started my business when I was in my 20s. So with that, it was having my own children and running a business and not having maternity leave like when you're an employee, and keeping the business going, even though I had employees as part of my years running the business, but keeping the business going while I had just given birth. And in fact, I remember a story that I literally had to service a client, and I didn't tell them I had just given birth. And literally from the hospital, it wasn't an official meeting. From the hospital, yeah, you laugh. I mean, now I think that was crazy, but from the hospital with my baby in the car, my husband at the time waited in the car. I literally had to go into the client for like 15 minutes to give them something, discuss something with them, and went back into the car with my baby, and they did not know that I had just given birth and come from the hospital. Crazy, right? Would I do it today? Not sure. And then as my years advanced, as I reached my, say, mid-40s, 50s, and 60s, the challenge with work-life balance was that as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as having responsibility to my business and to my clients, I love my kids, I love my grandchildren. I've been blessed with having a decent amount of grandchildren, thank God, and wanting to spend time with them, still being an entrepreneur and a career person and loving my business and my kids, and also being in what we call the sandwich generation, that I still have an almost 90-year-old father who I'm also his I would call his primary caregiver. I mean, we have someone a couple of hours a week, but his primary caregiver taking care of all his needs. I'm the one that takes him to the doctor's appointment. I'm the one that has to deal with all the logistics. So I would say those are my biggest challenges.
Yeah, those are challenges. That's a lot. And he's here, right? Yeah, he's here. You're taking care of him.
Yeah, thank God. He's in Israel, and when I moved to Netanya, and maybe we want to talk about this in terms of following our dreams and setting our goals and what causes us to do it. I don't know if I can lead straight into it, or if you want to ask me an official question.
No, that's good. Talk about it, please.
Okay, so I'm a firm believer about following our dreams and following our goals, and that it's not just, as we say in Hebrew, a sisma, that it's not just a saying or a cliche. So actually, not just talking, but walking the talk. 3 years ago, we moved to Netanya, which was my dream to live by the coast. And this was prompted by one of the challenges in my life. You asked about, business challenges. One of the challenges, and I think we can all as human beings remember certain, where we were at certain times, the traumas happened in our life, or things that triggered us to, move in a certain direction. And one of my triggers was my mom passing away very suddenly in her 50s.
Oh, wow.
So in her 50s. So I've just turned 60, and that was one thing. A couple of months ago, I decided to do a big online birthday bash to celebrate my 60th birthday, not because I want to do, advertise, hello, I'm 60 or something like that, but it was because of this trigger of my mom passing away in her 50s and never reaching the age of 60, that number one, that's been a big trigger for me to actually follow my goals and to be motivated and to really do what I want to achieve and actually follow through on it, because I always say, well, my mom never got to achieve her goals, and I want to be able to achieve my goals. None of us know what tomorrow will bring, whether we're living in a glorious, quiet country that doesn't have a war, or whether we're living in a country that has an ongoing war, or has, if not a war, terror and other things. But still, I wouldn't want to be in any other country. It's a country I love. And because of all of this is something that's made me, not only this or other triggers, we can go on to maybe talk about them, but this is a big one that has motivated and driven me to achieving my goals and helping my clients understand that they can also achieve their goals, that yes, if we plan it and we want to do it, we can. So that was another thing which as I say, has turned into something positive, but at the time when something negative happens, we don't always realize the positive that can come from it. But that is one thing that I would say is which led me to do this, but also which was a challenge at the time that I managed to, be able to move, and I was able to move forward.
Lesley, how do you how do you deal with your emotions? I mean, you must have. I mean, obviously, you were very young when your mother passed away,
Well, I
and
wasn't. Look, I wasn't very young. I was in my 30s. Okay,
oh,
I had children of my own, but actually, now that you mention this, one of the challenges was having a mother pass away when I was 39 weeks pregnant.
oh wow,
So I had other kids at home. I was 39 weeks pregnant, could not go to the funeral. It was in South Africa.
mm,
So what I did was I took my 1 month old baby with me and a 3-year-old when we went for the unveiling. But talking of challenges and how we get through things, and I will answer you and how I deal with my emotions, was at the same challenging time where my mom passed away very suddenly, and sadly we all lose our parents, and I understand you lost yours as well, so you understand the pain in it. But when someone is so young and it just happens so suddenly, it's like, God forbid, losing someone in an accident or a terror attack. So it was the same kind of thing, that it was just like totally unexpected from nothing. And at the same time, being 39 weeks pregnant, and then at that same time, giving birth to this incredible child, but this child who needed to have surgery 24 hours after he was born, and went on to have many other surgeries for different reasons. Today, thank God, he's a healthy, amazing child, almost 30 years old, actually 28 years old. And really a child that's built up resilience, and I've built up resilience as a person too, from also having my mother passed away and learning to deal with my emotions in this way, but also having a child that had to undergo many surgeries, including one which, just when we thought everything was safe and sound, where he developed the same child a massive tumor, a 12-kilogram tumor. My daughter was pregnant at the time, and we make a joke of it now, but it wasn't so funny at the time. But they compared the size of their stomachs, and he actually looked more pregnant than she did because
oh
of the
my
size
God,
of the tumor. So I'm saying all these things led me to being resilient. And how do I deal with my emotions? Firstly, I'm a firm believer of the half cup full and staying positive. And it's easy to say something, but when your life turns the wrong way, then sometimes people can say, well, I put across that I believe in the half cup full, but am I the half cup full? And thank God I can honestly say that that's really what kept me positive and sane during these challenging times. At the same time, well, firstly, there were two elements. The one is, as I said, when my mom passed away and giving birth to a child that needed surgery right away. And I could say, honestly, the positive attitude is what kept me going. Not to say that there were no breaking moments. I remember, going from a hospital, being in a maternity ward, then being moved to a surgical ward where you're not the patient, but your child is the patient. So
yes,
they don't
wow,
care that I've just given birth and that, I need a bed to stretch out on, also to nurse the child. I'm not the patient. I'm the one that's meant to be caring for the patient. So that was pretty challenging. And I do remember moments like that, but also having breaking moments where, having then staying in hospital for even longer. And we all know that staying in hospital is not such an easy thing. I remember even one night needing to get a nice night nurse to come and stay with my newborn baby overnight, because I had given birth, being forced in and moved into a surgical ward, and I just needed one night sleep and away from the hospital. So we need to know also when to reach out for help, and that is the other thing, is that we can't just be positive all the time. We can, it helps us internally, but knowing also when we need help and when to reach out.
absolutely. That is so 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 important. So important.
Right. And then likewise, when we had this major health thing with him when he was 18, and having to be 1 month in Ichilov Hospital when he was in the high intensive care unit. And this was also sprung upon us suddenly, I mean, yes, I won't go into the whole history of it, or actually the details, but he had this growing stomach, but there were reasons that we didn't always even notice it. But then it was, suddenly everything happening at once. And I'll share with you too, I did mention this on one of my other podcasts that I hosted when I did my 60th birthday. At the same time as going through this, I was going through a divorce. My daughter was getting married, literally at the same time that all this happened. And I was also finishing off my master's degree. So, they say it doesn't rain, but it pours. And that's exactly what happened, is that all of this happened at once, and having to deal with it and, trying to, on the one hand, not miss a step or not miss a gap, but on the other hand, knowing when to ask for help and when to try to slow down and just step back.
Oh my God, Lesley, you have a crazy life.
But thank God, I wouldn't say I've had a crazy life. Thank God. I honestly sound blessed, but there've been these trigger moments, and there's more that I obviously won't talk about or cannot talk about so as not to affect the guilty or the not guilty. These stories. So I'm saying there's more. There's a lot. But it's all about managing the dramas in our life. And I call them dramas because this is something that I put across to my clients as well, is that we're all going to have elements or issues in our life. We're all going to have what we call dramas. And depending on how well we're actually able to handle these dramas, or our level of resilience, and I know that that's a big word often used, but the more resilient we are, and on the one hand, to try continue without skipping a beat, but on the other hand, to actually know when, yes, you do need to skip a beat and to take a step back and to ask for help. So I think for me, it's been a combination of that, but knowing how to manage it and not necessarily letting my clients know which clients you can share things with, which not to share things with, or which, they may be interested in us, but at the end of the day, when a client comes to you, they're thinking of themselves first. We need to represent them, and they're not interested in what goes on necessarily in our lives and behind the scenes. So knowing when to do a pause and when to expose and when not to.
That's so right. When a couple of weeks ago, when we were having such scary times here, I actually decided that I wasn't in the best space to coach. And so I was able to reschedule some sessions because I felt it was more important for me to take care of myself and to bring my best foot forward by, taking a break. And sometime we have to sit down and talk about this because, my son also had a tumor.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, when he was 4 years old.
Wow.
And he wasn't in Buffalo, he was in Schneider. And, it's scary times. And it's those dramas and the way we respond to it that impact our business.
Sometimes our initial reaction is, we have this either panic moment, oh, what am I going to do now? Or how am I going to manage this? And then or an emotional moment where we break down or we cry or something. And then we pull ourselves together and we say, okay, Lesley, or okay, Barbara, you can deal with this. You've dealt with challenges before. And then you start thinking logically. In other words, for those few seconds, it may not be logical, but then you pull yourself together, hopefully, and some people pull themselves together quicker than others. And, in business as well as in our personal lives, it's not about the person who doesn't have challenges, because we all have challenges. Those that have challenges are often the ones that come out on top afterwards, because they're the ones that learn from it, as you know, in your profession. I'm sure you've seen this many times. And that helps us become more assertive and also become more resilient. So when we have these challenges, initially we may, and some people fall apart more than others, and some don't fall apart and just have that moment of, okay, or what am I going to do now or next? But the whole thing about it is how quickly we're able to bounce back. It's not about, yes, having it or not having it, but also one of my favorites, I'm an avid book reader, and one of my favorite books, by the way, is this Peaks and Valleys, which I don't know if you're familiar with it. And one of the things they talk about as well is, knowing sometimes you'll be on a peak, sometimes you'll be in a valley, sometimes you'll be in a plateau. And this can refer to our personal life or our business life. But the whole thing is knowing how to stay on the top, what got you to the top, that you can stay there, and using that to help you with other things in your life. And if you do find that you're going into a valley, what you can do to get out of it as quick as possible. And literally that can apply to any life situation, whether it's challenges in a personal life, whether it's challenges in business, and using our strengths to help us get back and bounce back quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. Who's the author? Do you remember? So we can put it in the show notes.
Spencer somebody.
Spencer somebody. We'll research it.
Yeah. He's also the same one who wrote Who Moved My Cheese.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Same one, and there's actually videos on it on YouTube too, and they're great. You know, they're written as if they're for children, but they're actually for adults, and they have fantastic learning moments. You know, also about making change.
That's wonderful. Good. That's a good reason. So, what is your best tip that you want to leave us with?
Okay. My best tip, once again, whether it's in your personal life or your business life, is that we're going to have challenges and setbacks in life. No one promised us a Garden of Eden when we were born. And how we learn to manage our challenges is what's going to help us get through anything in life. And a couple of things and takebacks that I can say is, number one, yes, having that half cup full or the rose-colored glasses view. We all know, I mean, we have relatives, we have friends. Some of them like this at the click of a finger, you can say they're a positive person, they're a negative person. So by trying to think positive or forcing yourself, if you're not a positive person, to think positive, that can, number one, make a huge difference in terms of how we can face our challenges and how we get through them. The other thing is not seeing something as a problem or challenge if it happens. Initially, it may set us back, whether it's for a minute, a day, an hour, whatever it is. Each of us bounces back at a different pace. But if you can see it as a life learning lesson, like when you have what we call a failure. Yes, there's things and failures in life, but I like to call them life lessons that we can learn from it and grow from it, whether it's personally or for our business. And this is what I teach my clients as well. And to learn from it and actually say to ourselves, you know, what could we have done differently that did happen? Was it something that we were responsible for? Was it something that would have happened anyway? And the other thing, especially with now, when we have a situation like in a war, there's many things that we can control and many things that we cannot control. And by focusing on those items and things that we can control, that's something that will definitely help us move forward. And the final thing that I just want to say is that when things happen, and I know that when I was going through these major traumas or challenges in my life, what helped me get through it was taking literally baby steps. Now, I know it sounds very cliche as well, but not to try, you know, first to be good to ourselves, be gentle to ourselves, and recognize who we are as a person as well and the good that we bring into the world, but also not to try and have these major goals, but to set yourself literally one step at a time, one goal per hour, one goal per day. If you manage to do that, do 2 or 3. In other words, keep moving and take action. For me, that is what's helped me keep going. And whether it's in a challenging time, you know, whether it's a challenging period like COVID or with the war or with my own personal challenges.
That is wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Lesley. I think there's
and it worked for me. I can't say that it'll work for everyone, but we can try it instead of, you know, sometimes people go to that cup of coffee or that chocolate or whatever. So do that too. But at the same time, do one thing, do one positive thing to move you forward, and that'll create the impetus to do the next thing.
The momentum, right? It gets you going.
And the momentum, exactly. But also that inner feeling like I can do it. I'm not totally broken. I can do it.
Exactly. So people can find me at lesliekaplan.com. We're going to put everything in the show notes. I do encourage you to reach out to Lesley, whether you're in Israel, whether you're abroad. Lesley has all kinds of lots of experience, 30 years, as we just heard, and resources and books that you can purchase on Amazon. And if you're here in Israel, on her website. So thanks again, Lesley. I apologize for all the technical difficulties that we had today.
That's okay. It'll be interesting to see. Firstly, thank you for hosting me, Barbara. And it'll be interesting to see how we put it all together with the cut paste from when we had to edit.
Yeah, well, life's like that, right? Sometimes we have to cut and paste and edit.
Totally, absolutely. You see, so maybe it was good that it happened because we can learn something from this. Exactly. And it could lead us to, or lead you to do something even bigger or different, you know, managing these. So thank
That's
you.
Thank you, Lesley. Take care.
Thanks so much, Barbara. Good to be with you.
Bye bye.
Bye.